Hello everyone! In this video we will take a detailed look at all the features of the Supersprint, and we will compare the Supersprint to the original MJet Sprint which was released in 2021. The Supersprint is coming as a free update for the original MJet Sprint and will be released in the same CG Trader page. So if you bought the Sprint, you will be able to just download the Supersprint. And right now, as this video is out, there is already a first Supersprint version 0, which is considered as an open beta version for public testing. Let's start by comparing the hull size of the Supersprint to the original MJet Sprint. The hull size is pretty much the same. The Supersprint is 10 mm longer and 7 mm taller, which helps with the self-righting. The goal with this update is to keep the style and the ease of build of the original Sprint and bring some new MJet features onto the Supersprint. One of the goals is also that you will be able to just take the old electronics from the Sprint and place them right into the Supersprint without the necessity of buying any new electronic components. We have turn fins now, and the turn fins, they are intercompatible with the Ragnarok. The only difference is that here you have the smooth transition into the turn fin mount, so it looks cool. From the bow into the jet drive we have this big delta, and here we have a shorter delta. And this is because Ryan Frere, who built the Ragnarok, found that this mod improves the handling. So thank you very much Ryan Frere for testing this mod and bringing this feature finally to the Supersprint. As we look at the intake, we can see that there is a loading intake grate, and what this does is that it improves the flow in the upper part of the pump, where the impeller would have problems with not getting enough water because the water has to go like this into the upper part of the pump, and the loader helps with that. And this is also a feature brought by our team of Ryan Frere, Lucy Guptam and Chris Leash. So thank you guys for testing this. The advantage of these two pieces, the intake grate and the right plate, is that this is intercompatible with the MJet 35. This pump is not the MJet 35, it is a smaller pump, but these two parts have the same mounting dimensions. Now moving to the top of the boat, here we can see maybe the most important improvement over the original Sprint, which is the lid design. The Supersprint uses a TPU lid design which is the same as on the Ragnarok, and I decided to use this in the Supersprint because it seems to seal better and more reliably than the old design. So if you had leaks in your MJet Sprint, now they might be gone. The design of the deck, which holds the pilot, the roll cage and the engine, is very similar to the system which Ragnarok has. We can unscrew the two knobs on the top and remove the frame. The difference is that now this whole frame, the black part, prints as a single piece and simplifies the assembly. We are using the old pilots from the MJet Sprint, and so far we are also using the old engine, but I might design a new scale engine in the future. So now let's remove the TPU lid and take a look at the inside. We can see a lot of flotation. With the Supersprint you also get templates for cutting the flotation more accurately. One of the most important changes to the inside of the boat is the ESC placement. Look where the ESC is now. Before we had the ESC over here. The disadvantage of that setup was that it was shifting the CG on the opposite side of the flat chamber, which required then to make the flat chamber bigger to compensate for that. But as we place the CG on the same side as the flat chamber is, this shifts the CG to the side where we want it for better self-righting. And so far the self-righting on the Supersprint seems to work really well. And this new ESC placement is not my idea. This feature is brought to you by Sandro Flori, who tested this in his Ragnarok. So thank you very much for sharing that. On the other side, we can see a receiver dry box. This is an optional part, but the dry box is designed in a way that it holds the receiver on the horizontal plane. Which means, if you have a receiver with a gyro, you might want to test this, what the gyro does to handling of your boat. It is not quite clear what this does to the handling of the boat, and I also want to test this myself. But the option is there, so you can just try it. Now looking at the motor mount, this is the same style of motor mount as the MJet 35 has. Let me disconnect everything just to show you how the motor mount is looking like now. And after some little effort, loosening the drive shaft, you just slide it out like this. And you can see there are two steel pins here which go into two holes in the housing. Then you tighten these two screws and they hold the motor quite firmly. And now this is another big difference compared to the original MJet Sprint, because now we have a rotary shaft seal. And this should also stop any leaks which were coming from the shaft before. And we also have a rotary shaft seal right here for the steering rod. Size of these rotary shaft seals is the same as for the MJet 35. And now finally let's take a proper look at the pump. Here we can see it looks pretty similar to the MJet 35. It has this trim nozzle, which you can easily remove using just this locking nut. And you can change the vertical trim just by printing different nozzles. Now you can just slide the steering shaft out. And now looking at the pump, you will notice that there is a very important difference. Now instead of having any screws here, we only have the screws here. And this whole piece prints as a single piece. And this idea is brought to you by Joel Anderson, who did this with the MJet 35. Shout out to you and thank you for sharing this idea. And now to pull the pump out, you need to rotate it to pull it around the impeller, but eventually it will slide out effortlessly. And here we can see that the impeller is a plastic one. This is not designed for a metal 3D printed impeller, but it's designed for a plastic one. You cannot even use a metal printed impeller because this doesn't have the counterweights. With plastic, it doesn't have to be that much balanced because the blades are very lightweight, but if you used a metal one, it might start to vibrate terribly. On the other hand, with the original MJet Sprint, many people started to use the single blade impeller mode, and I haven't heard anyone reporting problems with the vibration. This bearing is the same size as the MJet 35 bearing in the second stage, and this is also the same size here. So you cannot reuse the bearings from the original MJet Sprint, but you can use some of the hardware of the MJet 35. And now you might be interested how to build this. So the documentation at this moment is not fully ready yet, but there are already pretty good resources with information how to build this. A full set of the assembly drawings, and this should be enough to get you going. But I also filmed the whole process of building this boat, so it's just a matter of time before I can release a full build video, just as you saw for example with the Valkyrie or with the MJet 35. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and feel free to download the newest files of the Supersprint. Go and make your boat fly!